Welcome back to the First and Goal podcast, everybody. My name is Sam Levine, joined by Mitch Weinberg here on a Tuesday evening. Tonight is May 11th, and tonight we are going to talk about, leading off the podcast, we're going to talk about the 5 quarterbacks selected in the first round of the 2021 NFL draft that just wrapped up a couple of weeks ago. So starting it off, the first one, obviously, Trevor Lawrence, the first one selected, number 1 overall to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So we are going to be breaking down the fits, their roster, and the current situation for each of these quarterbacks, and really just give our thoughts on the situation at the moment. So starting off with Trevor Lawrence, first of all, we've known this for a while. We've talked about it a lot, so we're not going to spend too much time on this one. But I honestly think this isn't the worst situation in the world from a weapon standpoint. You're talking about giving Trevor Lawrence guys like James Robinson, who is a very young running back and a powerful dude. You also got veteran wide receiver Marvin Jones Jr. out wide for him to catch Marvin Jones Jr. to catch passes from Trevor Lawrence, also bringing a lot of that knowledge that he has, obviously having a lot of experience in the NFL up to this point. I think the Jaguars have done a very good job of surrounding Lawrence with weapons this offseason. They've given him a lot of guys to get the ball to, distribute the ball to, which has definitely been a bigger issue with some of the younger quarterbacks in the league that we've seen come up in the last couple of years, namely Carson Wentz and Sam Darnold. So they've definitely done a good job from that aspect. And as much as people may not like the Travis Etienne pick, myself included, I'm not a big fan of it. Going forward, it is what it is. They do have that player. He's a good weapon. There were better players on the board. There were higher positions of need on the board, but he's a good player. He's explosive, and he definitely does add something to the offense.
Absolutely. I mean, you completely disregarded their newest signing, which I can't believe you didn't even post it on the
We're
Instagram.
not even gonna. Yeah, because it wasn't even worth posting.
Oh, that's that. You know what? I think that's offensive. I'm sorry to Sir Tim Tebow,
He's not going to get any playing time.
I might even get cut. We'll see. Actually, I'm sure Urban Meyer, he'll drop 5 passes. Urban Meyer's going to keep him. But that's my issue. Is when we look at this situation, it has nothing to do with the roster around him because that's built to succeed. As you mentioned, Marvin Jones Jr., 2 great running backs, and DJ Chark, one of my personal favorite wide receivers. They also got Laviska Shenault, who had a breakout year. Devin Duvernay, who I think is also a quality wide receiver for depth-wise. I picked him. Oh, wait, no, that was wrong team. I'm thinking of Colin Johnson. Devin Duvernay is on Baltimore. That's my bad. Yeah. He's also quality wide receiver for.
2 Texas guys, though. You got the team.
Yeah, I didn't remember if it was Duvernay or.
Hey, aren't you a Texas fan?
Exactly. That's why I had to shout him out. And I just think that overall the situation in Jacksonville, it's I haven't seen Urban Meyer coach in years. He's retired since 2016-ish.
I think 17, 18, somewhere around there.
And he's turned down numerous opportunities to coach in the NFL. I heard rumbles that when Jason Garrett was on the cusp of getting fired, Dallas was going to want him and tons of other teams. But at this point, can he still coach? That's my only question, because I know that the team built around him offensively can succeed. I don't really know if I can say the same defensively. Don't love that situation, but offensively, it's good. Now, Urban Meyer, I don't know, because when he won the national championship, he was led by a young man by the name of Ezekiel Elliott, basically carrying that whole team. It wasn't JT Barrett. Come on, give me a break here. We know that it was on the back of a running back, and you can't. I'm not saying he's going to run the ball every play. I mean, Travis Etienne isn't Ezekiel Elliott, but Trevor Lawrence is a talent that doesn't come around very often, as everyone agrees. This is A-grade talent. So, we've seen tons of talent come through certain franchises and bust. And sometimes it's the scouting fault. For example, Jamarcus Russell. That was definitely the Raiders' fault, but not comparing the two, obviously.
Quick little side note. That is such a Raiders pick. I mean, looking back now, knowing the information that we know about their drafting, that is such a Raiders pick.
Oh, absolutely. But I think a better guy, Sam Darnold, except obviously he has more weapons. the Jets couldn't develop a player for their life, and their coaching was brutal. And I know Urban Meyer's actually going to have faith in Lawrence, but it's still, I don't know. What does Urban Meyer's offense going to actually look like? Because for a lot of these guys, some of the coaches are the same. We can see what it's looking like. But for two of the guys on this list, I can't say that.
Yeah, also looking at Jacksonville, like you mentioned, you fleshed out their weapons a little bit more than I did. Chenault, Marvin Jones Jr., DJ Chark. There are a lot of.
Tebow.
I won't say it. I won't say it. I won't do
Say
it. No,
it. Shred
absolutely
Tebow.
not.
Shred
I'll
Tebow
say
right
I'll
now.
say Chris Manhurts, the tight end, before I say Tim Tebow. Dude,
Is Tyler Eifert still on that team? Or is
no.
he?
Dude,
No, he
Luke
was on
Farrell,
last year.
their 5th round pick, is higher on the depth chart right now than Tim Tebow. I refuse to say Tim Tebow is a real weapon of that team. So just
wait until he catches a touchdown in week 2 of the preseason.
it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Oh, maybe in the preseason, but it's not in the
I said
regular
preseason.
season. Not when it counts.
I don't know about that.
But no, I love the weapons on this team, and I have for a little bit. They have a lot to like. They're also very versatile. Travis Etienne can play all around the field. Good receiver. He really improved upon that at his senior year at Clemson. And also, Urban Meyer has said that he wants to move Travis Etienne around, play him in the slot, use him more as a pass catcher out of the backfield and an explosive guy in the running game, which I'm very interested to see how that works out because yes, he was a solid pass catcher at Clemson. That wasn't the role he played. He wasn't really a slot guy that you can move all around the field. So that's definitely going to be something interesting. Laviska Shenault is another guy that you can move all around the field. There's a lot of versatility and explosiveness on this team, which I am very excited to see. And I'm also very excited to see how Trevor Lawrence plays into that because he is also an athletic quarterback who can use his legs. The one issue I have quickly, I'll get this in before we move on to Zach Wilson, the number 2 overall pick. The one issue I have is Andrew Luck was just as hyped up as Trevor Lawrence it was this past draft, just as hyped up. They were the same caliber prospect. What was Andrew Luck's issue? What caused him to retire early? Injuries, because he got hit, because he got sacked a lot. He took a beating and he got a lot of concussions. He got injured and also, actually, I'm not sure if it's concussions. I'm sorry, it's shoulder injury. And so multiple shoulder surgeries later, he had to retire early. He was great on the field. He was great when he was on the field, but shoulder injuries and surgeries caused him to retire early. We're looking at an offensive line for the Jacksonville Jaguars who has Andrew Norwell, Brandon Linder inside, 2 good players, aging, but good players. But you're looking at the tackles. Cam Robinson, Jawan Taylor, not too great. Not sour taste in my mouth. That's definitely a little bit of an asterisk. That definitely leaves me a little bit hesitant to say, all right, Trevor Lawrence is going to be the quarterback for the next 10 plus years if this works out. Listen, I'm not calling an injury or anything like that. I mean, that'd be insane, but that is a little bit of a cause for concern. The tackle position for the Jacksonville Jaguars is not great. It is something to keep our eyes on going forward because, listen, these are the guys that they're going into 2021 with. These are going to be the tackles for this team this season, so it's definitely something to watch. Also, they drafted Walker Little in the 2nd round. Currently, he is the 3rd left tackle on the depth chart, so as we go through camp, he may improve that, but as of right now, it's Cam Robinson and Jawan Taylor we have a lot of tape on right now, and they haven't looked too great in the past. So now moving it on to the number 2 overall pick, Zach Wilson of the Jets. And listen, if you've listened to the last couple of weeks for the podcast, you know Joe Douglas is my favorite GM in the entire NFL at this point. Joe Douglas, if I'm building a team, I'm picking Joe Douglas as my GM. I love this man. I absolutely think he's a great general manager. Getting Zach Wilson was the absolute slam dunk pick, but it's what else he did in the draft. Trading up for Elijah Vera Tucker, the best interior offensive lineman in this class. Also drafting a wide receiver, a very good slot wide receiver, and Elijah Moore at pick 34. The way he improved this offense to give Zach Wilson weapons like Sam Darnold never had is really just what blows my mind and makes me so optimistic about Wilson's future here with the Jets.
I mean, look, there's a lot to like about Zach Wilson, as you mentioned, number two quarterback and top 10 prospect. And again, I'm skeptical about the coaching. I'm skeptical about the history. Look, a lot of the prospects that we're going to talk about, the next three prospects we're going to talk about, I can confidently say two out of the three coaches, I am confident they will develop those quarterbacks into something greater than what they came into the league to be. Is that going to be with Zach Wilson? Maybe. I don't know. I hope so. But if we look at the weapons around him, it's better than almost any Jets quarterback has had since, I don't know, maybe Brandon Marshall. Because the Jets historically, like, not so many great weapons on the roster. LT on the back end of his career, Brett Favre on the back end of his career, but he's not really a weapon. Tim Tebow, like Brandon Marshall, and Keyshawn Johnson. Those are the guys that are like, and Curtis Martin. But, you know, Corey Davis, I like Corey Davis a lot, and Jameson Crowder's still on that roster, I think. So I'm
Mhm.
fine with that. And then tight end, Chris Herndon, who also is fine. And then they drafted Michael Carter out of UNC, who is I think can develop to be one of the better running backs in this class because he's one of three, I want to say, that guaranteed has the starting job with Najee Harris and maybe Travis Etienne. So realistically, those are two guys I think have the starting job. I don't think it's going to fall back on the Michael P. Ryan. So, or Perrine, I don't know how to say his last name. So weapons wise, it's a okay look. And then coaching wise, again, defensive guy. And the fact that the Jets have failed to develop quarterbacks throughout the history of their franchise, like, I don't care that it's a new head coach. It seems to be a new head coach every 3 years. When was the last time the Jets had a great quarterback? To answer that question is Vinny Testaverde. And if you don't know who that is, exactly.
I will say, I definitely agree with you. The history does not bode well for Zach Wilson and the development of, his skills throughout his career. And that, is clearly evident throughout multiple head coaches. It's a history with the Jets. I will say, currently, the offensive coordinator for the Jets is Michael LaFleur, the former offensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers. I think there's no better signing that they could have picked. There's no better guy that they could have picked to be the play caller for Zach Wilson, this young quarterback, than Mike LaFleur. He's coming from one of the most successful offensive coaching trees in the entire NFL at the moment. That Mike Shanahan coaching tree that has bred Sean McVay, probably the best offensive minded head coach in the NFL at the moment. You also have Kyle Shanahan, another genius, offensive genius. And then Matt LaFleur, the Green Bay Packers head coach, who just had Aaron Rodgers, the MVP. Yeah, let's stroke my favorite
Your
team a
boy.
little bit. Yeah, let's throw them in there whenever we can. But those three guys are great offensive head coaches, and they're all play callers for their team. Michael LaFleur, if it's any indication, he's going to be yet another great offensive minded coach of that same tree. So I will say, yes, I agree with you. History isn't on his side. However, this tree has bred exceptionally good um offensive play callers. So that is definitely something to keep your eye on. And also, of course, the brother of Matt LaFleur, the Green Bay Packers head coach. So I'm sure they talk, maybe not share plays because, obviously on different teams, but Mike LaFleur maybe picking up a couple of tricks from his older brother. So now, number 3 pick overall in the draft, Trey Lance went to the San Francisco 49ers. And guess what? This is the one that I was calling the entire time. I called the bluff on Mac Jones, and I said it was going to be Trey Lance. Guess what? I guess I'm a genius. It was Trey Lance. So
So
yeah.
sad.
so
Wow.
yeah. Giving myself props here on the First and Goal podcast. But this is a great pick because Trey Lance, I think Justin Fields was the better player, and I know you disagree with me on that one, but I think Justin Fields was the better player at number 3 overall sitting there. However, I think Trey Lance is a better fit because Trey Lance's athleticism can be used to a higher advantage in Kyle Shanahan's offense. He likes to run the ball a lot, which Trey Lance was very successful at running the ball in college. Trey Lance also has a huge arm. That's something that Kyle Shanahan worked with in Atlanta with Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan also has a very big arm, really knows how to push the ball down the field. That is something that is a combination of huge arm, really great arm strength and arm talent in Trey Lance, and then the athleticism as well that I really think Kyle Shanahan is going to have a lot of fun with and be able to really exploit and really get the most out of that to call plays to exploit the weaknesses in the defense.
This pick overall is just a win. I mean, Lance may not play at all this year, okay? And the Jets still have Niners still have Jimmy Garoppolo, have great coaching staff, great weapons around them. Their wide receivers, they could use like one more great wide receiver, but they have George Kittle, they have Raheem Mostert, and if he's injured, Trey Sermon. And if he's injured, I don't know if Jeff Wilson's still on that roster, but he was pretty good last year.
Elijah Mitchell. Elijah Mitchell. Day 3 guy. I really like him. And he's a raging Cajun, I believe. He's one to watch. Day 3 guy. One to watch.
I mean, there's a ton of great guys for Lance to fall on. And, there's no need to rush Lance because Jimmy Garoppolo is a game manager. And most game managers, Sam and I give crap to. We don't like a lot of them, but I think we can give Jimmy Garoppolo a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. Similar to Jared Goff. He's mediocre. He's bottom of the barrel. He doesn't bring so much to the table. Sure. But if their offense is so terrible, why do they make it to the Super Bowl? We get it. Oh, defense carried them. You can't literally just have a defense and expect to win. Look at the Chicago Bears. That's all I got to say.
Defense doesn't win. I mean, only defense doesn't win championships anymore. It's not how it works nowadays.
No, it's not like in 1985. So, yeah, I just see this Lance as a great development pick, and I think people might see him being played a little sooner than anticipating, assuming that the development goes well. I mean, I think the telltale will be preseason, which is really unfortunate for quarterbacks such as Jordan Love last year, who didn't really get a chance to shine and see what it's going to look like with them under the roster. There's the other 2 quarterbacks that were picked in the first round also will benefit greatly from preseason, seeing how they adjust into the National Football League. Now heading on to a guy that I dispute about a lot, and I've had mixed opinions about that. I've not fallen in love with the prospect, but I see where people are coming from. We have the Bears trading up to number 11 with the Giants taking quarterback out of the Ohio State University, Justin Fields. Now look, Justin Fields is in a great situation. Although they signed QB1 Andy Dalton, Twitter guy, what are you even doing, man? I still think that he's going to end up winning the job. And will he do a great job with the Bears? Yes. Why is this, even though I gave so much crap? That's a great question, listeners. It's because they have Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson has made every single quarterback he's ever played with look phenomenal. There's a reason they had a former MVP on that roster. Blake Bortles, why do you think he had a great shot in the playoffs? I could tell you it for sure was not because of Allen Hurns. Like, come on, give me a break here. So ultimately, like, I can tell you what the offense is going to look like with Justin Fields. It's better than with Andy Dalton. Even if Andy Dalton starts, it's fine. Allen Robinson's there, safety blanket. He's a one-man wrecking crew, basically, in my opinion.
Justin Fields, I feel like, is in a good situation because, like you were saying, he could sit. He doesn't need to start right away. And I don't think it's smart. I know you said it's okay if he plays right away.
He shouldn't. I don't think he should.
No. We both agree it's probably better if he sits because we've been beating a dead horse with this phrase. He isn't really good at reading the defensive backs down the field. And that may sound like a smaller, critique, but it's a big issue because whenever you need to throw down, especially the middle of the field, you're going to encounter an issue. Sitting behind a guy like Andy Dalton, who obviously isn't the most prolific quarterback, but definitely has a lot of experience, knows what you're getting from him, and he knows what he's doing, obviously. He's been in the league for a long time. Justin Fields will be able to pick up a lot of knowledge about really reading the defense from Andy Dalton. And I think that those lessons that he will be able to learn will be invaluable. So sitting on the bench is going to be a really good experience for Justin Fields, something that I think will overall make him a better player. And if you can fix that, those reading the defense issues, the progressions issue, the way that he locks on to his first read too long, and then the actual ability to read the defensive backs in the deeper part of the field, I think this guy's a great player. I mean, I really do. I think he'll be a franchise quarterback for the Bears. I just think you need to fix really those two issues. Great thing is, those two issues are very coachable, and having a guy like Andy Dalton on the roster who does have a lot of experience will absolutely help with that.
And I think that's pretty important that we recognize how great this roster ends up being. So I'm just going to talk about Mac Jones very quickly because I'm getting a million texts that it's urgent. I'm just going to mute myself and I'll hop on in like 2 seconds. I'm not going to end the FaceTime call, the Zoom call. I apologize, everybody. But Mac Jones, super smart quarterback. I love him a lot. I don't think he's better than any quarterback that we just named, but under Bill Belichick and the weapons that he's getting, I just see that as something that's like a huge plus and something that's really, really big that is potential for the Bears organization. Now, if you excuse me, I'm going to go on mute. I'm really sorry. My friends are spamming me because I don't know what in the world they want me to do.
Okay. So give a little shrug there from Mitch. It's all good. We have to adapt here. So yeah, I'll just take over for Mac Jones. Mac Jones is a guy that I'm not that high on. Listen, I posted, if you follow the Instagram, which if you're not following the Instagram, I don't know what you're doing. But anyway, I posted on the Instagram a quote that I think sums up this pick, my opinion on this pick, really well. I posted that the quote that I posted was me saying how, I'm not the biggest fan of Mac Jones, but if he does end up being a really good quarterback on the Patriots, I wouldn't be surprised at all because of the situation he's in, because of the system that he's in. This is a team that took 6th-round pick Tom Brady, who didn't look like he was going to be anything special, and made him into one of the greatest, or not one of, they made him into the greatest player and the greatest quarterback of all time. Well, you ask, what type of playing style does Tom Brady have? He has the exact same style as Mac Jones. Mac Jones and Tom Brady played identical to each other. Mac Jones and Tom Brady, both pocket passers, both really smart players with high IQs, high football IQs. They're going to make the right decisions. They're going to make the accurate throws. This is a guy, the Alabama quarterback, that fits into the Patriots mold of the type of quarterback that they want on their roster, of the type of player that they want to be leading their team. This is a guy that a type of player that Josh McDaniels is going to be comfortable and familiar with, and someone that I'm sure they will be ecstatic to have back on their roster, because this is at least the type of player that they had such massive success with over the last 20 years. So moving on into the second segment here, we're going to continue our conversation about quarterbacks. So post-draft. Now, which quarterbacks that are already in the league, which young quarterbacks that are already in the league will take that next step this year and really become elite quarterbacks and very, very talented players. So we have 6 young quarterbacks here: Sam Darnold, Jalen Hurts, Carson Wentz, Tua Tagovailoa, Joe Burrow, and Jared Goff lined up here. And me and Mitch are going to give our thoughts on whether they will be able to take that next step this year in 2021 post-draft. So let's kick it off here now. First, with Sam Darnold, we both agree that he will be able to take that next step. Mitch, you start us off.
Yeah, I want to apologize for that. Firstly, shout out to the 2021-2022 Selwyn Prefects. Shout out to you, boys. And they think you have a crazy setup with the Jim Brown behind you. So Sam Darnold, why is he able to make up the next step? 2 obvious reasons: weapons and coaching. The 2 things that we have been juggling with this whole time. Sam Darnold's intangibles, love, like not an A plus, but I think it's pretty darn good, like a BB plus, and I'm perfectly good with that. So when you have Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, wait, is it still DJ? No, I was thinking
Yeah.
of
No, DJ Moore.
DJ Moore. Yeah, still there. And Christian McCaffrey, JC Horn. The defense is looking good. I think the Panthers overall will be able to take a huge step forward with Sam Darnold. I think Sam Darnold brings something that Teddy Bridgewater did not, and that is youth and semi-mobility. Teddy Bridgewater used to be known for mobility, not so much anymore. And I just think that the Panthers and Matt Rule are really going to be able to allow him to take a huge, huge step forward. So, I mean, there's a lot to say about Sam Darnold. There's a lot that I like. I think he did a fine job, even with the whatever supporting cast you want to call in New York with that. So,
How about a
I
dumpster
think
fire? How about we call that?
that's kind. That's kind.
You're right. That is the kind version.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you put this guy on a team. I mean, just look at their draft class. This is a team that wants to make it work with Sam Darnold. They drafted Terrace Marshall Jr. in the second round at pick 59.
Love.
Love that pick. I believe they traded up to get him too, so really showing an interest in improving that offense. This is a 6'4" wide receiver, very physical, but I mean, he played the majority of his snaps in the slot last season, so he's going to bring a lot of versatility to this team. Can play inside, can play outside, and also, let's not forget, very familiar with offensive coordinator Joe Brady. Terrace Marshall Jr. played at LSU. Joe Brady, besides last year, he was the offensive coordinator at LSU. So Joe Brady is really going to know how to use Marshall to the fullest of his potential. They also drafted Shi Smith on day 3. I thought that was kind of a steal. He's a very athletic player that will bring some value. Maybe not immediately, but definitely does bring some value. Maybe as a substitute guy in some sub packages. But listen, they really improved this team, got this offense, got tackle Brady Christensen, who will probably start opposite Taylor Moton from day one. This is a team you're looking, they have all the weapons in the world. I mean, you said it, Robbie Anderson, who already has a familiar rapport with Sam Darnold, DJ Moore, excellent wide receiver, Christian McCaffrey, arguably the best running back in the NFL, Taylor Moton, very good left tackle, Joe Brady, one of the best offensive coordinators in the league. Add on top of that the exceptional offensive draft class that this team had. I just don't see any way that a quarterback who once went top 3 and still has talent cannot succeed in this offense. I just think he will take the next step, and I think he will become maybe not a top 10 quarterback, but I believe he will become a very good quarterback for the Carolina Panthers. So then the next quarterback we have lined up here is Jalen Hurts. And we disagree on this one. I say no, you say yes. So why don't you start us off and then we can go back and forth.
I talk a lot of crap about Philly. I do. And there's a lot of reasons. And I think every single one of them is justified. But Jalen Hurts' season last year is not all he has. He's got more in him. Now he's got the vote of confidence. He's got the Heisman winner and Dallas Goedert and Miles Sanders, and that's about it. I think, can he suffice with that? Yeah. Is Devonta Smith better than any weapon he had last year? For sure. Miles Sanders is still there, and even if he isn't, Myles Gaskin's good. I think didn't they draft the guy out of Memphis too?
Yeah, Kenneth Gainwell.
Kenneth Gainwell, like him a lot. He could probably play a bit of receiver. So and Zach Ertz is still on that roster somehow. So
he won't
there's
be for long, but
I don't know. But right now on the roster, he's listed. So I think that there's a lot there. His mobility is something that most certainly can't be slept on. The only thing that I think is going to hold him back this year is not the coaching, but rather a very, very tough defensive schedule. You look at the Giants defense, it's hard. They play them twice. Washington football team, hard, play them twice. It's an AFC West year for them. So the Raiders defense, sure, whatever, fine. Denver's defense is looking good. Kansas City's defense looking good. Chargers defense looking good. And then they play, I don't remember which NFC South. Tampa Bay's looking good. Atlanta's whatever. Saints, I don't know. And then Carolina's good. So that's my only issue. And will his development stunt? Because those are my only two concerns. Based on talent alone, I know he's going to fly through the roof. Definitely a guy that I'd recommend drafting for fantasy. So yeah, and that sounds crazy. I know, especially with such a tough defensive schedule. But looking for a dynasty league type people like me, I think it's a great value pick.
Listen, okay. We're talking about a guy who in college relied more on his legs than his arm, and that didn't change in the NFL. Okay. Well, what do you do for guys who want to run more than they want to throw the ball? You throw a spy on them, and they are completely useless. I mean, they can't get anything done. And that's who Jalen Hurts is. That's why he didn't get taken in the first round. His arm talent isn't great. And unless Nick Sirianni is some quarterback whisperer that is going to be able to completely turn around Jalen Hurts and make him a great thrower of the football in 8 months, 6 months, I don't see how he's going to become great. I mean, we saw it against Dallas last year. Dallas figured out how to stop Jalen Hurts. They threw Jalen Smith on him as a spy, and Jalen Hurts was not good for the rest of the game because he couldn't run. He didn't have any electricity throughout the entire rest of the game. The second half, he got spied, and he couldn't escape. He couldn't run, and he relied on that so much. That's what he needs to do to succeed. And if you put an athletic linebacker on him or even a safety as a spy, he's got nothing else to go to. His arm talent is fine. Jalen Reagor, Greg Ward, Travis Fulgham, they're fine wide receivers. They're not great. Devontae Smith is the only guy he's got, and he hasn't played an NFL snap. I don't see how Jalen Hurts becomes the Eagles franchise quarterback, and I think they're going to have to take a quarterback in the 2022 NFL draft.
Look, that criticism, that criticism sounds an awful lot familiar to someone else I know.
Don't say Lamar Jackson.
Look, that is exactly the same criticism Lamar Jackson gets. Look, I'm not going to say he's going to be as good as him. Relax. No. I don't think he's going to be Lamar Jackson. But look, that's the same criticism.
But Lamar Jackson can throw the football. Jackson. He can throw the football. He had 36 touchdowns in 2019.
There we go.
Oh my God. Are you sharing your screen?
I am.
Wow.
This is the new revelation for me to make my point, is now I have to share my screen.
Hold on. Okay, wait. So for you podcast listeners, Mitch just shared his screen of next gen stats. And yeah, it's a throwing chart. Completion percentage, right? Yeah, completion percentage.
No, it's passer rating.
Passer rating, okay.
How does one have a 118.8 completion percent? Does he get like more completions on one play? I'd like to know how to do that.
Oh yeah, but, okay. But this isn't even that good.
It is average, and then below in two zones.
He is bad down the middle deep. Bad down the middle left. Everywhere else is average.
Right.
And his only good, besides middle of the field, like middle range, his
yards.
Only other good range is short. He can only throw the ball short at an above average rate. I mean, I feel like that proves my point.
I mean, I could see how you think that it proves your point, but as a matter of fact, I disagree. I think that the ceiling is high for this guy. And look, a lot of guys come out of their rookie years looking developing into something great. I'm not saying that he's going to turn around and in 2 years be an MVP. Not what I'm saying. Again, I just think that there's a lot of untapped potential within Jalen Hurts that can be unleashed. They brought in a whole new coaching staff. I don't remember who Philly hired, but I can tell you it's not going to be Doug Peterson. And
that's a plus.
Again, that's a huge plus. And you mentioned the weapons around him, like Devonta Smith hasn't played a snap. Sure, fine, okay. Travis Fulgham for 3 weeks last year
disappeared after those 3 weeks. Disappeared.
But it did happen. And Greg Ward was pretty average and disappointing.
Don't tell me Jalen Reagor was good.
How many snaps did he play? Under 50?
No, he played the solid second half of the year, I think.
Okay. Well, I'm not here to talk about how good Jalen Reagor is. I don't like him. I think everyone knows that.
At least we can agree on that. At least we can agree on that.
I never. When have I ever endorsed Jalen Reagor? Never. This is a team that's going to be throwing to nobodies. I remember week 4 or something, the Eagles only had one wide receiver on their roster. I remember because I was making fun of them like everyone else was. But
like
you know
a
what? Like
yeah, like
everyone else was. But you know what? This offense could be ranked 16, and I say that's a success because everyone is down on the Eagles, myself included, but I'm not down on not Jalen Hurts. I'm down on him, Jalen Hurts.
I definitely agree with you that Jalen Hurts has potential. I just don't think he's, that high quality of a player. I mean, you look at what he does well and what he doesn't do well. What he doesn't do well is kind of the most important parts of being a quarterback. I mean, accuracy in all stages of the field, and then just being able to stand in the pocket, make smart decisions with the football on a consistent basis. Just doesn't do that. I mean, we didn't see that at college. We didn't see that at the end of last year. And while I'm not counting him out completely, he could become a good quarterback. From what I've seen right now, I can't justify saying that he will hit his stride and become the Eagles franchise quarterback. Now moving on to Carson Wentz, the former Eagles starting quarterback, now with the Indianapolis Colts. We both agree. We think this is a perfect situation for Carson Wentz in Indianapolis. Main reason for me why I think Carson Wentz will, become the Colts franchise quarterback is because of Frank Reich. I mean, he played with Frank Reich as his offensive coordinator and as his play caller in 2017 when Carson Wentz was on pace to win MVP. Okay, so Frank Reich and Carson Wentz clearly have a very good relationship that has worked in the past. It has proven results. It got them to a Super Bowl, right? And not only is Frank Reich really good with the Eagles, he has consistently continued to be a very good play caller here with the Indianapolis Colts. So it is showing that not only was Frank Reich a really good offensive coordinator with Carson Wentz, he just is a very good offensive play caller. Frank Reich knows what he's doing. He's a very smart coach. He's one of the smarter head coaches in the NFL, and him and Carson Wentz already have a great relationship, and Frank Reich really knows how to make Carson Wentz great.
I think that's absolutely fair, but I think we have to push offensive line because if you look at the
For
offensive
sure.
line, the Eagles' Super Bowl year, again, he didn't actually end up playing in it, but if we compare it to last year, it's a huge difference. And I think that's what counts more because a quarterback can do more with a better offensive line. Carson Wentz is probably the epitome of that. He's like, without a good offensive line, he's the worst quarterback in the league, with arguably worst quarterback in the league. With a good offensive line, he can be a above average quarterback. And at the end of the day, there's a lot to like about Carson Wentz. Oh, he's going to be terrible. If you think he's going to be terrible, you're looking at the wrong things because he's a great thrower, great playmaker. But you know what? When you have to play hero ball every down, that's what you get:
And he's a
interceptions and turnovers.
and he's a winner too. He goes out
Most
there
certainly,
and competes.
he's a winner along with a lot of the other guys that are on this list and a lot of the other guys that were drafted this year. He's a winner. He knows how to win. He's semi-leader. I think maybe I've been in the Eagles locker room, but not with him in it. And the Carson Wentz was a key part of the Eagles Super Bowl run. They never would have made the playoffs without him. So you could say all you want about the 17 with that defense. And were they made with Nick Foles? Probably, maybe. But why? Nick Foles is not better than Carson Wentz, obviously, judging by the fact that when the Bears tried to trade him, not a single team wanted him. It's because the intangibles are there, and we know the potential, but I think the Colts have to rework his contract for sure. Now heading on to a guy that I don't love very much, Tua Tagovailoa. Will he make a big step? I didn't know this was an option until Sam put it down for the next guy. I put on the fence. Okay, look, I don't love Tua, as we are all aware. Can he make the next step? Yes, I can see it. Do I think it'll happen? I don't know. But is there a high probability of it? Yeah, sure. His wide receivers, Devontae Parker and Jalen Waddle, two great wide receivers. Mike Gesicki, Myles Gaskin. The team around him is there. The coaching, I think it's kind of there, but I'm very curious to see how they'll end up panning out. And look, now on the topic of now that we can magically decide to share our screens, I'm going to show you this one, Sam, because you said that he's going to develop so much better. Look at this. There you go. For all you non-podcast listeners, I pulled it up for Tua, and now if we flip to Jalen Hurts,
Hey, listen.
it's about the same.
Okay,
It's about the
I
same.
I understand it's about the same, but if I could defend myself here,
You may.
if I could get in here, I could explain why I think Tua is gonna take that next step. First of all, I don't see how you can put those weapons that Tua has. I don't see how you can give those weapons to any quarterback that has talent and see and that quarterback won't have success. You know what I mean? He has Jalen Waddle, the most explosive player in this last draft class, who can play inside and outside. He has Will Fuller, one of the most explosive players in the NFL, who proved he can be a wide receiver one last year. You have Devontae Parker, very good possession wide receiver. Preston Williams, young red zone threat guy. Mike Gesicki, very well-rounded receiving tight end threat. I don't see how you can have those weapons on a roster and that quarterback who does clearly have talent will not be successful. I just don't see it. And then you have a young offensive line who is primed to improve. Former first-round pick from last year, Austin Jackson. Second-round pick, Robert Hunt on the tackles. Those guys will improve this season. So you're looking at this team. The weapons are great. The offensive line is young and improving. Running backs I like as well. Myles Gaskin, like you said. The weapons are there. The offensive line is going to improve. I just don't see how Tua won't improve from last year. The weapons are drastically better. And again, those young guys on the offensive line will get better as they are developing.
And I completely understand that. The only thing that I think holds him back is I don't like him. But I could see how
the thing that holds him back is I don't like him.
I don't like him. That's it. Because I just there's something that's off. First of all, I dislike lefty quarterbacks with passion, just in general. I'm sorry, Boomer Esiason, and I'm sorry, Steve Young, but I don't love lefty quarterbacks. And just overall, Tua scares me. At some point in his career, I'm not saying he's going to hurt. Okay, I'm not predicting an injury out here because that's my least favorite criticism. Whenever we talk about a prospect, he's injury prone. Yeah, sure. He shows prowess. He shows whatever. Like, okay, that's all I care about. I don't know. Just Tua as a prospect, never ever has he shown me that I should love him so much. And this year, will he make me my words? I hope not. But if he has a good year, I'll own up to the fact I was wrong. Which, if you know me personally, and even as Sam knows, I hate admitting when I'm wrong, and so does everybody else. Everyone hates when they're wrong. But I will be willing. You heard it first. I will admit if I was wrong if Tua can lead his team to a 5 seed, if he's a Pro Bowler or an All-Pro. That's the standards I'm setting for him. Because the guys that were picked after him, the quarterbacks picked directly after him, who you can honestly compare those two offenses on a pretty decent level. There's no excuse, none. I think I can admit that he's not as bad of a prospect as I thought he was, but I still don't know that he can take the next step, because the next step is a big leap in the playoffs. Not a playoff win. I'm not asking for a playoff win. That'd be nice, but literally just a 5 seed. That's the bare minimum I ask for Tua.
I definitely understand. Let's be real. Some of your criticisms of Tua and maybe some other quarterbacks aren't the most rational. I think we can both agree that sometimes you get a little out of hand. But
hey, who are we talking about here? Because some of the guys I can admit, yeah, I do go a little bit crazy. Tua most certainly being one of them. I think Justin Fields, it's a bit out of proportion, but I think that the arguments are somewhat fair. And then all the other guys, those are only 2 prospects I hate. That's it. And yeah. Daniel Jones, but that's justified.
But that's just completely justified. I'm in the same boat. No, for Tua, sometimes you get a little bit out of hand, but I can definitely agree with you about the Justin Herbert comparison, Because Justin Herbert, I mean, he won Rookie of the Year. He had 31 passing touchdowns, only 9 interceptions. He looked like a franchise quarterback in just his rookie year. And Tua being taken one pick earlier, he's kind of got to live up to being just as good as Justin Herbert to justify the Dolphins taking him ahead of Justin Herbert. So I definitely agree with that point. That definitely makes a lot of sense to me. I think Tua will be able to take that next step, though, and become the Dolphins franchise quarterback in 2021. Now, this is a really interesting one. This is going to be Joe Burrow. And I know this is a team in the Cincinnati Bengals that neither of us are really happy with. We both think they should have taken Penei Sewell at number 5, give Joe Burrow some more protection. This is an interesting one. Now, I said on the fence for him for whether he will take that next step or not, because the offensive line still isn't great. I mean, you take Jackson Carman in the second round at pick 46, but he's kind of more like a tackle / guard type player. A lot of people project him more that he's going to be better at guard, so he could be playing inside. I mean, your tackle position still might not be fixed. So I'm very hesitant to say that Joe Burrow is going to take that next step, because I don't care how many weapons you have by taking Jamar Chase, right? I don't care how good he is. If Joe Burrow doesn't have enough time to step back, survey his options, make a smart decision, he's not going to take that next step and become a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Listen, Jamar Chase is the fancy pick. If he has enough time to throw and the protection is good, then yeah, it works out. It's a good pick. But I just can't say with confidence that he will be protected going forward.
And that's my only reason I have no. I love Joe Burrow as a talented player, but they needed to go offensive line. It was a big necessity, and they failed. That's why that Jamar Chase pick is not an A. If they picked an offensive lineman instead of, well, not last year, but like if they went offensive lineman even deeper last year and found someone that can protect Joe Burrow, then it would have been good.
Michael Onwenu.
Yep, he fell pretty late.
Yeah.
And he's a Pro Bowler. He's a Pro Bowl talent guard or tackle, offensive lineman.
Yeah,
like
versatility too.
And that's my issue, is that the Bengals didn't have their priorities right for Joe Burrow. And I'm sure he's happy to get Jamar Chase. And looking at it next year, if you're picking early again, it's pretty obvious as to why. But they go offensive line, they learn their lesson, and they can still get a playoff spot in the AFC North. I like the way their defense is developing, but they need to protect their franchise quarterback.
For sure. And again, we both really think Joe Burrow is a special talent. I mean, we both think he should be able to take that next step. We both think he has the talent to take that next step and become a top 10 quarterback. We're just not confident in the offensive line. I mean, we see eye to eye on this one. We agree that Jamar Chase, yeah, he's going to help Joe Burrow. He's going to help the offense, but doesn't have time to throw the ball to him. I mean, what's the point, right? I mean, Penei Sewell was staring you right in the face, a generational talent at tackle. So we're just hesitant. We're just not so confident that Joe Burrow is going to be protected off the edges. Now, let's move it on to our final segment for the day. We're going to wrap it up with some quick fire questions here. We each have 6 questions lined up. We're going to do answers under a minute in length so we can get really rapid fire here. I'll start it off. Mitch, what team catapulted themselves into Super Bowl contention because of an excellent draft?
I think that's a tough question, but I'm going to have to go with, and stay away from my biases, I'm going to go with the Chargers. They killed it with the offensive lineman pick. I like it. The offense is looking good. The defense is getting Derwin James back. So I think there's a lot to like. Sure, they lost Hunter Henry. They got Jared Cook. I think that's fine. And they addressed their biggest needs. And the offense is looking good. Defense is looking good. They may not win the division because they're with arguably the best team in the league, but I think they could still contend. Now, my first question, we kind of already answered it, but which quarterback is in the best possible situation?
Best possible situation. You know, this is kind of tough because I feel like there are flaws with all of the quarterbacks' situations, except one, and that's going to be Trey Lance, right? Trey Lance is sitting in San Francisco with a Super Bowl caliber defense, great weapons in Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle. I mean, the list goes on and on. Raheem Mostert, very good offensive line. Mike McGlinchey, one of the better tackles in the NFL. And then, of course, Trent Williams, who is now on a 6-year deal. And he's clearly a top 3 tackle in the NFL. And then a offensive mastermind in Kyle Shanahan. I mean, you're putting a young, talented quarterback on a Super Bowl ready roster. It just astounds me what the 49ers were able to do getting up to that number 3 spot. It was a devastating year for them in terms of injuries, but honestly, I feel like this is best case scenario because now they have what I think is their franchise quarterback. Moving it on to my second question. Now, this one is something that you might need to think about a little bit more because it's not as clear. I'm not asking you who is the best quarterback prospect in this draft. I'm going to ask you, in 10 years, when we look back on this draft, who are we going to say, from your perspective, was the best quarterback from the 2021 draft class?
Look, if we look at it's obviously going to be a quarterback pick in the top 5. I'm sorry to Davis Mills and Kellen Mond, but it most certainly won't be you. I don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty with 4 out of the 5 teams that pick the quarterback. The one team I'm certain that can develop a prospect and make him great is the New England Patriots. I don't think Mac Jones is the best prospect in this draft, but Bill Belichick finds a way to win every single year. Every single year he finds a way to win.
Are you saying what I think you're saying?
Mac Jones is a winner, and that's why I don't think he's the best player. I don't know that he'll be the best prospect, but I know Bill Belichick, if anyone is going to put any of these quarterbacks into a position to win, it's not going to be Matt Nagy with Justin Fields. It's not going to be Kyle Shanahan with the Bears. It's not going to be Justin Fields, Matt Nagy and the Bears, because Matt Nagy's probably going to be out of there in the next few years. Kyle Shanahan, it could be Trey Lance, but again, I don't know with that development. I don't trust Urban Meyer, and then we're left with Justin Fields. The last thing we want is a quarterback to be flip-flopping out of systems, which I could see a lot of these quarterbacks doing, and I don't like that. The one team I could say for certain is going to keep constant and has the highest probability to bounce back and win within the next 10 years, it's New England. I trust Bill Belichick, and why wouldn't you? Do you trust any of these head coaches as much as you trust Bill Belichick? You're lying to yourself if you're saying no. So, because he develops winners. That's what he does.
Yes or no question, okay? Yes or no question. In 10 years, you think Mac Jones will be the best quarterback from this class?
Yes. I just said it. Yes, I don't think he's the best hold on. I don't think he's going to be the most talented player. But if we look at stats and if we look at accolades like winning team wins, that'll be Mac Jones. I think who will probably end up having more passing yards, that's a different question. But who's going to end up with the better accolades? I put my money on the Patriots. They had a down year this year. I don't care. I think Bill Belichick will benefit from Mac Jones more than he did from Cam Newton.
So you kind of think it's going to be like a Tom Brady situation, not the most talented player in the NFL, but maybe looked at as the best and as the greatest from this class.
Yes.
Okay.
Except from Tom Brady's class, that's not a
right. You know what I mean. You know what I mean. Tom Brady in the league and in the history, and Mac Jones from this class. Yeah, I think that's a great take, and honestly, I could get on board with it.
Wow. All I have to say is, wow, I'm completely shocked.
Me agreeing with one of your hot takes.
And especially on draft, that's where my hottest takes come in. It's definitely draft. It's not usually regular season. Which first round pick, I'm going to change it up on you, which first round pick will end up haunting a team for years? And I'm going to put an exception in here because I already know what you want to say. Not the Raiders.
That's what I was going to say. Absolutely.
I knew you were say Raiders.
But I was actually trying to think of something different because that was definitely an easy one. This is kind of tough.
It's not the Raiders.
I could go in a lot of ways here. I'm thinking, kind of trying to go with something different. I was thinking potentially Jalen Waddle. Just because of I could have said that.
Because of Tua? Yes.
No,
He's
not
been
because
on
of
point.
Tua. Not because Jalen Waddle will be a bad player, just because of maybe how good I think Devontae Smith will be.
Uh,
Because, a similar situation to potentially the Dolphins
Tua and
passing on
Herbert.
Justin Herbert. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Similar situation to potentially that. Um, I'm gonna go with Peyton Turner though. The
Yeah, I figured
pick
that makes sense.
from the New Orleans Saints, 28th overall edge rusher from Houston. Now, I'm not gonna say Peyton Turner is just gonna outright be a bad player. I just don't think he is clear. I clearly don't think he was a first round prospect. I think most people agree with that around the league. I had a third round grade on him. Um, I think he still could be a good player. His measurables, his athleticism are there. It's just from a technique standpoint, from an actual football player standpoint, I just don't think he's a first round prospect. But the real reason why I think this pick will haunt him is because of how good I think Azeez Ojulari is going to be, who slid all the way to 50, and the Saints could have had him there at 28. I am super high on Ojulari. He was my second best edge rusher in this class. I also think Gregory Rousseau, as raw as he is right now, I think he will turn out to be a very good edge rusher just with his pure athleticism, dominance off the edge. I think he will develop into a good edge rusher, a very talented player. Another guy that the Saints passed on, Jason Owe, another athletic freak that could become a very good edge rusher. There were a lot of really good edge rushers that the Saints passed on that I think will become very good in the NFL, that I think they're really going to look back and say, maybe it was a mistake to take Peyton Turner. Maybe we should have taken one of these other three guys. Now, my third question is kind of similar to my last question. When all is said and done, and we're looking back on this draft class, this has been a very highly debated topic throughout the lead up to the draft. But when we're looking back, which corner do you think will end up being the best from this class out of Horn, Surtain II, and Caleb Farley?
I mean, those are three great guys that have really high development ceilings. But again, I'm going to go with a team that I know can develop defenders. It's going to be Patrick Surtain. I think he was I think he was the best prospect in this draft. You could have debated J.C. Horn. I personally preferred Surtain. And if we look at all like Denver's defense, not really throughout, like we could look throughout the history, but let's just look at corner for a second. They've had Akeem Talib, Bryce Callahan, just like defensive back wise, it's a really good look for Denver. And I think that this year may not be a great year for him simply because there's three cornerbacks on that roster. But out of I think the three or four that are starting, two of them aren't under contract for next year. I believe Bryce Callahan's a free agent, along with someone else on that roster that's a starting corner. So he will slide in nicely into that Denver system. I could definitely see Horn being a very great pick because, again, I don't know that the Panthers should have went with Horn, but I think he's a great defender. And Farley, again, a great defender. These guys are all really great defenders, but I could see Surtain being developed further. Now, my third question to you is who was the best value pick in day two? Value. Bear in mind, because you can easily just say the best player, even though I'm sure you're going to say, even though I think I already know who you're going to end up saying, but,
You don't. I can tell you it's not Terrace Marshall Jr.
I wasn't thinking Terrence Marshall Jr.
Oh, who are you thinking?
I was thinking of a linebacker who might have went to Notre Dame. I don't
Oh,
know.
yeah. Okay. No. Yeah.
Oh.
No. So it was between him and Azeez Ojulari, and I just had Ojulari ranked a little bit higher than
That's fair.
Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. I said it before. I was a huge Ojulari fan. He's got the best get off throughout this entire class. He's really athletic, but he doesn't rely on his athleticism to win. He's got good technique and very good hands, really good bend around the edge. And also the Giants, they really needed an edge rusher, and they're getting a guy that I think was a bona fide top 25, top 30 prospect in this draft class. I just think this is a home run pick. And Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah only taking 2 picks later, I'd be fine with saying he was the best value pick in day 2. I just had Ojulari ranked a little bit higher. Now, what team do you think absolutely and completely bombed the entire NFL draft?
That's a tough question. And
Is it though? Is it though?
like I don't want to say Raiders because that's like
It's a
so
gimme. It's a
obvious.
gimme.
Like I don't want to go Raiders. Okay, Raiders won. Okay, we know this. I can go
Yeah.
on and on talking about how they bombed drafts in the past, but if we're looking at a team that, in my opinion, needed a big boost, like it might even seem crazy that I'm predicting this team, a team that needed a big boost didn't have so many picks, and they failed to capitalize on all of them. Can you take a guess which team failed to capitalize on all their needs? They didn't have a first round pick.
I'm gonna say Rams.
No, I think that the Rams, I don't think they need a big boost. I
Seahawks?
think, yeah, I'm going
Yeah.
with the Seahawks. I think that they're so close to being able to, like, and not be contenders. They're obviously contenders, but like they needed something in this draft, and they had so little picks, and I think that they bombed all three. Dwayne Eskridge, I talked about him earlier in the year when it came to Senior Bowl season. Why? Like, I think they probably should have won offensive line with all three of their picks. Instead, they went Dwayne Eskridge, who, like, sure, fine, whatever, probably could have gotten him in the fourth round, maybe. They went Trey Brown out of Oklahoma, and then in the sixth round, they went Stone Forsythe out of offensive tackle out of Florida. They needed to help Russell Wilson. They didn't, and therefore, you're going to get a bad grade. I mean, they didn't have as many picks as they probably need, but that's bad. I think Jamal Adams is a great player. This is not me crapping on the Jamal Adams, like on Jamal Adams, but was going all in for him the smartest thing? I don't know. It really isn't looking like it. And it has nothing to do with, I don't think Jamal Adams isn't a phenomenal player, but the amount that they lost, is it worth it? Because they needed to capitalize on this draft. And could they have gotten Trayvon Moehrig, who is not as big of a hitter as Jamal Adams, but could it with, and especially next year they don't have their pick, so it's not great. Seattle's future is in jeopardy, and arguably have one of the worst futures in the National Football League right now. Okay, heading on to my question. That was kind of weird. Which prospect is likely to have a down year one, but have a great year two? And what I mean by this, because Sam was a little bit confused, and you guys might be too. Which rookie this year, heading into this year, will underperform? It doesn't even have to be like bust. If they underperform, but in 2022, will have a better sophomore year.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. I'm probably going to go with a corner because that often happens for corners. Just the way the position works. I'm probably going to go with Greg Newsome because Greg Newsome is a guy who he looked great on tape in his senior year at Northwestern, but we have a very small sample size. He played in the Big Ten, which played a very limited amount of games this past year, but in all of them he looked exceptional. But outside of that, he didn't really look like a first round prospect. However, I do think he was a bona fide first round player just because of how exceptional his senior season at Northwestern was. I do believe he might face a little bit of a learning curve just because of the amount of high level play, the small amount of high level play of experience that he has had at college. I think he might be just a little bit slow to adjust to the NFL in his first year. Also added on the fact that he is playing cornerback, and then in the next couple of years, I really do think he will take off because I really do think he's a great player. He's also a smart player who knows how to adjust quickly. And as we saw, going from his junior year to his senior year, he can go to a guy who wasn't really on anyone's radar to a guy who was a bona fide first round pick. Now, getting here into the tail end of our questions, what are your thoughts on the 2 third-round picks at quarterback? The Vikings taking Kellen Mond, quarterback out of Texas A&M, and the Texans taking quarterback Davis Mills from Stanford.
I'm going to start off with talking about Kellen Mond for a few seconds. I like Kellen Mond, great talent. Why did the Vikings take him? I don't know. Kirk Cousins is still a great player, and he doesn't seem to want to retire anytime soon.
Quick note,
unless
Quick note before you continue. Sorry for interrupting you, but
no,
a lot of people don't know this, but Kirk Cousins had 35 passing touchdowns last year. I mean, let's not overlook that 35. So that kind of confused me a little bit why they took him because obviously that's an exceptional number. But
You know what? The fact that the Vikings told Kirk Cousins that they were drafting Kellen Mond, like he's not there to take his job. The Vikings have made that very clear, as it should have been made very clear, obviously. And I mean, great player, but I can't justify them taking him at all unless they're predicting an injury, unless they have some glass ball and they know. And the Texans taking Davis Mills. This means one thing: Deshaun Watson isn't playing football next year. That is literally what it means, because if he was playing football next year and they were going to full out tank, I don't think they would have won quarterback. I don't think they're tanking. I think that they're prepared to brace the fall of losing the best player on that franchise on that team right now. I mean, it's unfortunate that they couldn't trade him for obvious reasons why, but it's just not a great look for Houston drafting quarterbacks in cycles. Like their quarterback room it's bad. Without Deshaun Watson, it's bad. You got Davis Mills, Tyrod Taylor. Like, give me a break. It's just not a great look. And their coaching, we already had a whole fiesta talking about how much we disliked every single one of the Texans' moves this offseason. Now, here's the most anticipated question probably out of all these. When will the Bears put in Justin Fields?
this one is, I think there are a lot of layers to this one because we both agree that he should be sitting. Honestly, however long it takes, that's
Can you give me
truly
like a
what I think.
timeline?
Yeah, no, for sure. But for some reason, excuse me, if for some reason the Bears are winning with Andy Dalton, which I can't see in any situation, but if they are winning with Andy Dalton, I think Justin Fields is just going to sit until they stop, winning. That's normally what we see with rookie quarterbacks. But if they start losing, I think you give it 4 or 5 weeks max, right? Because that's normally what we see between 3 and 5 weeks if the team is really losing poorly with that bridge quarterback, and then that rookie quarterback comes in, especially when they are a top 10, 15 prospect. So if they are losing, give it 4 or 5 weeks. If they're doing okay, I say after the bye week. So
Week 13 bye week. This man's gonna be playing at the end of the year, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think it's going to be 4 or 5 weeks if they're losing. Also, because I think the Bears aren't going to be jumping to put him in. But if they're doing fine, maybe around week 8, 9 after the bye week, somewhere around there. So my last question is going to be, I think I know who you're going to pick for this one, but day 3 player that you think is most likely to become a star in the NFL.
I mean, I talked about him a fair bit last week.
Yeah.
Yeah, he already knows who I'm gonna say.
Hint star hint.
Star, yeah. Great hint. And it's not Nashawn Wright. Sorry, I had to spoil that because if you thought I was going to Nashawn Wright, you're a funny guy. We're going with Jabril Cox out of Louisiana State University. He may not be starting this year, but assuming the Cowboys do not re-sign Leighton Vander Esch, which all the signs point towards a yes, he's going to be subbing in to arguably one of the best linebacking cores in the league. That has one of the linebacking cores, like out of all 3 linebackers, that has a very high ceiling. Jalen Smith got a lot of ridicule last year, which was obviously deserved. But even if they end up losing Jalen Smith and Leighton Vander Esch next year, Micah Parsons is looking good. The Cowboys linebacking core, it's arguably the best in the league. Potentially has the potential in the next 5 years to grow to be top 5. Now, heading on to my last question, which team will draft the same position next year?
I think that it's going to be the Raiders. I'm sorry. We avoided using the Raiders as an answer for this entire thing, but I'm sorry. They're just the most obvious one. It's clearly the one that makes far and away the most sense because they for some reason they decide to purge their offensive line, which they self-created offensive tackle as a massive issue. So, you can't blame the pick, like the positional pick of offensive tackle for them. I just don't think Alex Leatherwood was the right player. And I think we're going to see that play out on the field. He's not going to produce like the Raiders hope he does, which I think is going to eventually lead this team to being, in the higher picks, top 16. And there are actually a lot of really good offensive tackles in next year's class, like Evan Neal, just to name like the top guy, again from Alabama, which is going to be probably a player that the Raiders are interested in because they really
Or
do
maybe if
like.
he's from Clemson or whoever went to the national championship.
Exactly. If they make the national championship, then the Raiders are going to take them. But that seems to be their formula. But
Formula for what?
for drafting, if
Failure?
they
For
for
failure?
failure, yeah, for drafting, we know it as drafting, but for Raiders fans, it's called failure, um,
Or disappointment.
or disappointment.
A
Yeah,
lot of words.
the 3 days of disappointment, but in April. But yeah, I just think they're going to be picking the same position because Alex Leatherwood is not the answer in my mind at tackle, and offensive tackle. We keep reiterating it, the second most important position in football. They have to get that position right before they look elsewhere. So I do think they will have a top 16 pick, which will, automatically, I believe, lead them to looking at offensive tackle as their most important position to select and to fix. And again, there are a lot of really good offensive tackle prospects, at least looking at it right now in next year's upcoming draft. So that is going to wrap it up for episode 49 of the First and Goal podcast. Make sure to check out episode 50, which will go live Thursday, sometime during the day. Episode 50, I know we're already at 50 of the First and Goal podcast. Also, go follow the Instagram at First and Goal FB. That is the username on Instagram. Again, First and Goal FB for quicker posts and graphics pretty much daily. That is your place for that. Also, go follow and subscribe to the YouTube channel, First and Goal on YouTube. That is the username. That is where you can find quicker analysis and opinion videos, First and Goal on YouTube. So that is going to wrap it up for episode 49. Until next time, Sam and Mitch signing off.